What do Batman, Daredevil, Goku, and Luke Skywalker all have in common? The answer? An epic origin story. We gamers all have that story of what it was like when we started gaming. Hopefully none of those stories start with your parents getting murdered in front of you in Crime Alley, but I'm assuming all of them are mostly positive. The earliest console I remember playing is the Nintendo Entertainment System. I was really young, but I have so many vivid memories of it. I remember Saturdays playing Super Mario Bros. 3 and Mega Man 2. I remember when I was 6 and I busted my chin open, had to get stitches, and when I came home, I just laid on the couch and watched my brother play The Legend of Zelda. I also remember the uncommon, offbeat titles that I still go back to and play today. In this video, I want to discuss a handful of these not-so-common games that I played and cherished when I was a kid. Now, I consider these titles uncommon, not based on their rarity or value today, but based on the fact that they're not any mainstream titles. Games that aren't Nintendo IPs, that aren't Mega Man, that aren't Ninja Gaiden. Games where when I first talked to kids about it at school, they had no fucking clue what I was talking about. Each of these games made their spot in the corner of my memory, so sit back and enjoy the glorious 8-bit past with me. Kabuki Quantum Fighter, released in 1991. Scott O'Connor's brain is put into a computer to fight a computer virus. He does this in the form of a hair-whipping kabuki actor. So if you know me, sci-fi has always been my jam, so as a kid I was immediately invested. I love all the futuristic and alien-looking levels, and the enemy selection itself is just so insane, like the robot fire-breathing heads with exposed brains. This is one of my favorite enemy designs from an NES game. The game is similar to Ninja Gaiden with its side-scrolling combat and platforming. Aside from the hair whip, Colonel O'Connor gets some awesome sub-weapons ranging from a simple projectile to sticks of dynamite. My favorite part about this game are the boss battles. They can be pretty tough and takes multiple tries to get down the pattern and become more accurate with your moves. And I think the boss battle designs are pretty good. For example, you gotta fight this robot spider, but he goes on the ceiling and just stays there. To get him to come down, you have to bait his giant laser beam and dodge it. For a game this early to have a concept of putting yourself at risk in order to damage the boss was really impressive to me as a kid. The other challenging part that I will never forget are the platforming stages and segments. The third stage in particular, holy crap. Replaying this stage for this video brought back so many memories of death after death after death. And then the game has those classic NES parts where you gotta be really precise with the jumps, or you have to launch from max distance on a platform. It can be irritating, but it just adds to the drive to beat it. Kabuki Quantum Fighter is just a great mix of challenge, fun, and creativity. Deja Vu, released in 1990. You play as a private detective with no memory, and you have to figure out who you are and what the crap is going on. Deja Vu is a point-and-click adventure game, like King's Quest or Grim Fandango. The main character's name is Ace Harding, and you know with a name like Ace that this game just bleeds film noir. This was the first point-and-click adventure game I have ever played. I have to admit, as a kid, the concept of examining and investigating, using clues in the game to progress, it was all a little too much for me. I think I was 4 or 5 when I first played it. My older brother seemed to gravitate towards it and understand it more, so I spent most of my time just watching him play the game and learning how to play. You're given a selection of actions to use in order to pick something up, open a desk drawer, speak to NPCs, basically to do everything. It's a complete change of pace from the usual side-scrolling games that were the most common on the NES. The writing is pretty good for an 8-bit game and offers some good humor as well. What I remember the most from this game though is the music. The game doesn't have many tracks, but the few they have just slap so hard and get stuck in my head. The main track that plays throughout the game gives off a vibe of wandering a big city at night, with a cold breeze chapping your face as the bright lights blur while passing them by. It's a mood, man. Like most people, I love a good mystery, and the case to discover Ace's identity and what happened is just a fun time. I really like it when you do something wrong or make the wrong choice and just end up dead. It can happen at any time, so you really have to think, which is something I appreciated more when I was older and came back to this game. This was the first game that opened my eyes as a kid and made me realize that games could be more than just jump and shoot or turn-based combat, which is why I'll never forget Deja Vu. Nightshade, released in 1992. Or technically Nightshade Part 1, The Claws of Satek, according to the game screen. What do you get when you mix superheroes, point-and-click adventure, side-scrolling action, Egyptology, and film noir together? You get fucking Nightshade. Nightshade takes to the streets of Metro City, no, not that one, to fight crime and defeat Satek. To do this, you need to explore and examine clues, fight beat cops and jackal dudes, all while gaining popularity with the citizens. I'll be straight up, I don't think that I would call this game good. For example, there's no way to actually save the game on the cart, so when you run out of health, you have a chance to escape and continue, but if you don't, you die and it's game over. You gotta start back at the beginning. Also, the controls in combat aren't the greatest. Nightshade kind of slides around way too much. But what made this game so appealing to my young mind was just the hodgepodge of genres and mechanics that were thrown together. You go from beating up a giant rat man to having to examine the environment and unlock secrets. Also, I always thought Nightshade's sprite just looked awesome in all its orange glory, kind of like Simon Belmont from Castlevania. The game also doesn't take itself too seriously, as you'll find lots of little humorous lines and things in the game. Like the switch that says it'll explode, but doesn't actually explode. I remember being stuck here for so long because I actually thought it would kill me. What a troll. I think I always remember this game because it had an interesting vision it attempted to bring to life. The mix of genres was definitely a bold choice for its time. It's hard to deny that this was a unique experience to play, and what's really awesome is that there's actually a port of this game on Steam. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm adding it to my list, so I will here soon. Crystalis, or I've heard it called Crystalis. No clue. I call it Crystalis. Released in 1990. Awaken from a cryogenic sleep from the Great War of 1997. You play a hero that has to, you guessed it, save the world. In this action RPG, you acquire equipment, abilities, and spells to take down enemies while listening to one of the coolest Battlefield themes ever. This was the first action RPG I ever played. I found it awesome to mix elements from games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, with fast combat more common on the console. The game has the dopamine increasing mechanic of gaining levels. As a kid, any game that had level building would always get my attention. I love to grind, and in Crystalis, you do need to grind to get money to buy better equipment, and it does take some time. I honestly don't remember owning this game as a kid, but I do remember renting it a lot, and I want to say it was my most rented NES game. Renting RPGs was the ultimate child gaming challenge. The games were long, and you would only have the game for a weekend, if that. So you were glued to the TV, progressing more and more each time you rented it, and sometimes you never beat them. Aside from leveling up, what really appealed to me was the ability to charge your sword and release a stronger attack. With 4 different swords to choose from, all with increasing abilities, I was eager to get to the next orb just to see the new charged attack and what it would look like. The controls are great, and it just feels awesome to end a creature's life and pick up the money it drops. Unlike Nightshade, Crystalis was a game that mixed genres and is really good. The RPG elements were welcome, but at the end of the day, it was the combat that sealed the deal. If you want to experience the roots of the action RPG genre, I highly recommend this game. Elements of these games and their evolution of respected genres is such a wonderful thing to have watched throughout the years. One of the best things about retro games is seeing great ideas or mechanics that were made 30 or even 40 years ago that are still used today. These games are forever locked in my heart for the memories and building blocks they provided to me. What was your first console that you played on? What were the uncommon games that you were raised on? Feel free to share them. Thank you for watching.